2008's Quarantine came out near the tail end of the 2000s fast zombie craze. In the early 2000s, we had 28 Days Later, followed by the Dawn of the Dead remake in the mid-2000s, and then 28 Weeks Later hit theaters around the same time this movie dropped. Personally, I think fast zombies are kinda lame, but they still have a place in my horror-obsessed brain. Quarantine is more of a slow burn into full-blown mayhem. Every few minutes the situation gets worse. Then the power goes out, and all hell breaks loose, right up to the bitter end. One thing I love about this movie is how the infected don't just instantly turn into violent monsters. They change slowly, and even once infected, they seem tense and disoriented more than aggressive, until a bright light hits their eyes. In the dark, they're sick and confused. But in the light, it's like the infection fully takes hold. It's a cool mechanic that adds to the tension. This video is just a quick recap, and some behind-the-scenes info, meant to reignite interest in people talking about Quarantine again. It's a great example of keeping it simple. Put people in the dark, scare the shit out of them, and boom, asses show up in seats. One quick heads up though, the camera work is super shaky, and there are a lot of flashing lights, so only watch if you're comfortable with both of those. Oh, and let's talk about your favorite fast zombie movies down in the comments. And I put a couple of links in the description if you want to check out the full movie. I love these films, but my goal isn't to replace watching them. It's to get people excited to watch and talk about them again.
Warning, you are now under quarantine.
2008's Quarantine opens with a young and ambitious TV reporter, Angela Vidal, and her loyal cameraman, Scott Percival, who are filming a segment for a local news program called Night Shift. Their assignment for the evening is to shadow a team of firefighters during their overnight shift at a Los Angeles firehouse. Angela is upbeat and cheerful. She, for some reason, looks a lot like Deborah Morgan from Dexter. Excited to show viewers the behind-the-scenes lives of everyday heroes. Angela is assigned to shadow two firefighters. Jake, a young, brave, good-natured, and quick-thinking engineer, and Fletcher, who is gruff, blunt, and bordering on inappropriately playful. So much so that Angela catches him on a hot mic being less than gentlemanly.
$100. Says I can bang her by the morning.
Oh, come on.
I'll take that bet.
Despite the off-color remarks, Angela remains open and playful. She even beats Fletcher in a foot race to suit up in firefighting gear, winning $10 from him in the process. As the night drags on, Angela, who's still in good spirits, begins to run out of things to cover, and eventually resorts to filming the firefighters' rooms, and jokingly comparing them to her college dorm. This lighthearted tone quickly gives way to mounting dread when the firehouse receives an emergency call reporting screams coming from an apartment building downtown. Now, I gotta pause here and point out something I think is really cool. You're hearing music in the background right now, but that's only because I added it during editing. Quarantine, already bucking Hollywood trends, has no musical score. The director wanted the film to rely entirely on natural sounds, creaking wood, distant screams, the hum of fluorescent lights to create tension. And it works. The silence becomes part of the fear. I know you're thinking that the apartment building was real, but it wasn't a real building at all. It was fully built and fully functioning set. Built on Stage 23 at Sony Pictures Studios, complete with 4 floors and even a working elevator. The production design team filled every inch of that space with incredible detail, from the flickering lights to the grimy walls and cobwebbed corners. If I hadn't looked it up, I would have assumed it was just some forgotten building tucked away in downtown LA. Angela and Scott accompany the fire crew to the scene, filming every moment. The group arrives at a rundown apartment complex, where they're met by the building manager and several frightened residents. The call had come from a unit where Mrs. Espinosa, an elderly tenant, was reportedly acting erratically. Once inside her apartment, Mrs. Espinosa is found in a trance-like state, covered in blood and clearly disoriented. Suddenly, in a shocking burst of violence, she attacks Officer James and bites him gruesomely on the neck. After pacifying Mrs. Espinosa, Officer Danny and Jake haul James out of the apartment and downstairs in an effort to get him medical attention for the vicious bite wound. Fletcher stays behind to restrain and tend to Mrs. Espinosa. When they try to exit through the front door, they discover it's not only locked, but barricaded. In a shocking turn, the situation goes from bad to worse when Mrs. Espinosa attacks Fletcher off camera, biting him. The assault ends with Fletcher falling from the second floor and landing brutally on the lobby's unforgiving floor. Fletcher, though gravely injured, is still alive. With no access to a doctor, they enlist a resident who is a veterinarian to tend to him. Back upstairs in Mrs. Espinosa's apartment, the building's cleaning lady suddenly charges the group, only to trip and crash to the floor. Jake checks her pulse, only to find that she suddenly died from the tumble. Mrs. Espinosa reappears. She's covered in blood and looks noticeably more feral.
Yeah, I gotta stop again. While Quarantine definitely features some blood, it isn't an all-out gore fest. The filmmakers made a deliberate choice to lean more into suspense and dread over outright gore and blood splatter, helping preserve the documentary-style realism. The special effects team used old-school practical methods too, partly to avoid issues like visible tubing in those long handheld shots, and partly because it made resetting and cleaning between takes much easier and cheaper.
Officer Danny, having already witnessed what she's capable of, issues multiple warnings. She ignores them and charges animalistically. With no other option, Danny shoots her in defense of himself and the others. She crumples to the ground, seemingly neutralized. Jake tries to calm the situation, but Danny, realizing the entire incident was caught on camera by Scott, angrily attempts to swat the camera out of his hands. As panic spreads, Angela continues filming. Angela attempts to get an explanation, but no one gives her a straight answer. All lines of communication are severed. The building is now officially under quarantine. As the situation escalates, more infected individuals start to emerge, including another tenant named Elise, who begins exhibiting the same erratic symptoms. After rounding up the people showing symptoms, the veterinarian begins connecting the dots. Fever, foaming at the mouth, and sudden, unwarranted acts of extreme violence. The infected are displaying signs of rabies. However, even the vet starts to doubt his own conclusion, noting that rabies usually takes weeks or months to incubate, whereas everyone here is symptomatic within minutes or hours. The CDC enters the building, armed and equipped with medical gear. They head into the makeshift triage room, where they sedate Fletcher with an injection to the neck. One scientist extracts a brain sample, while the other becomes a human lunchable. With the triage area lost to the chaos, that section of the building is sealed off.
Okay, I promise I'm only going to pause once more after this, but it's impressive that the entire movie was filmed over the course of roughly 28 days, with most scenes consisting of 3 to 6 continuous minutes of unbroken footage. Because of this style, the same scenes were often shot repeatedly throughout the day to ensure the team had usable takes in case someone flubbed a line or missed a cue. They wouldn't move on to the next sequence until both the director and all the actors were satisfied. Now, if you're thinking 14 hours a day just to shoot 6 to 12 minutes of footage, yeah, it sounds like hell. But here's where it gets even crazier. Much of the dialogue was improvised. While key plot beats were scripted, the actors were encouraged to deliver their lines and interact in a natural, unscripted way. Director John Eric Dowdle didn't want it to feel like a movie. He wanted it to feel like something you'd accidentally stumble across in real life. And if something came off too theatrical, if a line felt fake, or a reaction wasn't believable, he'd call cut and reset the entire take, even if it meant redoing a full 6-minute sequence. Unlike most films that shoot scenes out of order to save time or money, Quarantine was filmed entirely in chronological order. This helped the cast stay grounded in the moment, with their emotional arcs building organically as the story unfolded. Every scream, every moment of panic became more authentic because the actors had truly lived through the events up to that point.
Only the core 4 and one surviving scientist make it out. Once things settle, they press the now unarmed scientist for answers. He reveals that a dog treated at a local vet clinic had violently attacked other animals. After a thorough investigation, the CDC traced the outbreak back to that dog, Max, making him patient 0 as far as they know. Angela remembers that Brianna mentioned having a dog named Max during their mock interview earlier in the night, and Brianna has been showing signs of infection. Though her mother insists it's just bronchitis, it's revealed that Max did, in fact, infect Brianna. She bites her mother, Kathy, and flees into the building. While trying to find Brianna, Danny is bitten. He holds off the infected munchkin, buying Jake and Scott just enough time to escape. Mrs. Espinosa reappears. Jake double-taps her with a sledgehammer, like Thor on an average Tuesday. All hell breaks loose as the remaining survivors flee into an upstairs bathroom. The building superintendent tells them there's a secret way out, through a locked hatch in the basement. But before he can reveal the location of the key, he's attacked by the CDC scientist who was unknowingly infected. Another woman is revealed to be turning when she's caught gnawing on her own fingers. Chaos erupts. Everyone in the room is either attacked or infected. Only Jake, Scott, and Angela escape unharmed. With the stairwell overrun, the three opt for the elevator and narrowly make it into the super's apartment. After a quick and frantic search, Angela finds the super's keyring, but upon leaving, Jake is attacked and killed by the now infected superintendent. Angela and Scott attempt to reach the basement hatch, but every infected tenant is crammed into the stairwell, blocking the way. Forced to go up instead of down, they rush to the attic apartment, frantically finding the key and barely making it inside before being attacked. The building has been steeped in darkness ever since the quarantine began. Scott's camera light is flickering, threatening to plunge them into total darkness at the worst possible moment.
I gotta say, Jennifer Carpenter's performance is stellar throughout the whole movie, but in this final sequence, she's on another level. Her acting alone in this part of the movie could and probably will cause you to experience a bit of a panic attack. Jennifer Carpenter's performance was so intense and realistic, especially in the final act, that some crew members genuinely thought she was in distress. Her screams and reactions were so convincing that they had to pause filming multiple times to check on her and make sure she was okay and not experiencing an actual mental break. She reportedly would laugh it off and giggle, taking it as a compliment. This isn't a one-time thing with her. During the filming of The Exorcism of Emily Rose, she also delivered an unnerving performance and genuinely haunting reactions that unsettled cast and crew. And before we get to it, the ending was kept a secret from the crew to keep it a surprise. Also, so we don't have to stop again, the creepy infected cultist at the end is played by the legendary Doug Jones. You've seen him as the amphibian man in The Shape of Water, the faun in Pan's Labyrinth, and tons more. Doug was only on set for one day, but it took 4 hours to get him fully suited up in that disturbing full-body prosthetic. Sadly, a lot of that detail gets lost under the film's signature green-tinted filter, which is a shame because the work was incredible.
They uncover something chilling in the building's attic apartment. Files, news clippings, and strange materials suggest that a member of a doomsday cult had been illegally experimenting with a military-engineered virus, an advanced, weaponized form of rabies called the Armageddon virus. It was designed for biowarfare and had been stolen from a government lab. The cultist had used the apartment as a hidden lab to test the virus on animals, and eventually himself. The virus mutated far faster than anticipated. Instead of taking days or weeks to show symptoms like traditional rabies, this strain could incubate within hours or even minutes, causing violent aggression, animalistic behavior, and eventually full neurological collapse. A ceiling door suddenly swings open with a violent crash. Scott uses the camera's flickering light to see what might have caused it. As he pans across the darkness, we catch a quick glimpse of an infected figure swiping at the light, shattering it and plunging them into absolute darkness. Scott activates the camera's night vision mode, turning the screen a paler, eerie green. In the pitch-black room, they hear strange sounds, metal creaking, something breathing, then movement. An emaciated blind man stumbles through the room, his body grotesquely deformed. This is the cultist, the original host, now completely overtaken by the virus. He's no longer human, operating purely on animal instinct. Angela and Scott try to stay silent, but the creature becomes aware of them. Scott is suddenly attacked and dragged away off camera, leaving only Angela to pick up the camera and continue filming. Angela frantically pans the camera over to see the infected cultist feeding on Scott. She uncontrollably lets out a panicked whimper, alerting the infected cultist. She's swiftly attacked. The camera falls from her hands and lands facing her, just as she is dragged, screaming into the darkness. There's no final girl in this movie. Everybody dies. I feel the need to tell you, this is actually a remake of a Spanish horror movie called Rec, or Record. Most fans say the original is better, but I'll leave that for you to decide.